Cool. So, two judges. Y'all ready?
Yeah.
Are you ready? Recording ready? Recording ready? The A point is the framework. The goal of the ballot is to endorse the team with the best method to destroy civilization. Endorse the team with the best method to destroy civilization. The first argument is that civilization have created a dualism that is a threat to all of our existence. The A point of this is that this is a dualistic view that is the relation between the self and the world that divides between the two, justifying the exploitation of the environment and the extermination of other individuals. This is the reason that's why individual behavior and our relation to nature ultimately inevitably results in a form of genocide where we are separated from the natural state of existence in the first place. With the B point of this, in this way, we are able to shape our norms, lifestyles, and policies with cardinal consequences in relation to the natural environmental issues. But the C point of this is a simplification that is ultimately bad because it destroys the ways in which we are able to understand what it means to be alive. This is an attitude of powers that is alive to the infinite complexity, whether human or the rainforest, which is an ultimate gross oversimplification. But the D point under this is that human beings are the only interdependent, are now in this context only have interests as consumers, investors, laborers, photo soldiers, or taxpayers, etc. And the fourth is only valued with the diversity of the species, and the only way, its only interest for us is that of timber, and animals are only valued to us for that of meat. But this is a standard that is only allowing for short-term providence, and it is all this providence incentive which is allowing for these types of consumerisms to exist in the status quo. But the second framework point is going to be that piecemeal reform is failing now. The A point is the colossal danger to all life is represented by the greenhouse gases, the radioactive wastes, CAFOs, deforestation, etc. cannot be solved by piecemeal reform, indicating that we have never been capable of being able to resolve those questions now, and we were also never able to resolve questions of poverty and hunger and oppression of other individuals through these questions of reform. But the third argument is going to be that nothing but a destruction of civilization is able to save us from this threat. The A point of this is that we are only our indomitable will is able to survive the ordinary people coupled survive as ordinary people coupled with the instinct for mutual aid. It's able to save life at this most important period of history. But the B point of this is that it is entirely useless to be able to put our trust in the powers that be, because the powers that be only have an incentive to continue this form of exploitation. But that's the links. The first link is going to be that of state action. We indicated the resolution is an instance of state action, which ultimately advocates for the civilized state of the mobilization of the military. This is a form of alienation and environmental destruction, domination, and colonialism that allows for all other forms of violence at the core of civilization. The resolution calls for an incremental change with the A point of this. This is an incremental change to the way in which the military operates now, with the way in which we are positing military force in the world. With the B point of this is likewise to the ways in which we are able to orient ourselves to green technology, which is an example of this. We have indicated civilization as to be able to create piecemeal solutions to our degradation of the environment, but these are not able to solve because the only are able to adjust the symptoms, but not actually stop the collapse of the world. But the second argument is going to be that of the narrative of progress. The resolution assumes that history is a story of civilized progress toward the utopian future. Would indicate that the A point of this is the narrative of the hunter-gatherers developing the civilization in the first place, and thus being deemed as being progressed from that. But the resolution calls for a continuation of this project. But the third link is going to be the weapons from the withdrawal military are always going to be dismantled and dumped into the earth. Would indicate that these are buried within the soil of the earth and underneath the skin of our planet. Indicating that this is another way in which we're able to continue with this form of environmental degradation and the dissolution and the separation between humanity and the earth. But the fourth argument is going to be that of militarism. We would indicate that this results in the everyday lived reality for the environment. War is enacted on the environment continuously with military testing, ground deployment, and landmines. But the A point of this is that calls for the decrease of this proliferation ultimately results in the logic of civilization to be able to perpetuate itself under the guise of progress. But the B point of this is that all fears of extinction are inevitably rooted in the progress that we've made in military technologies as well, indicating that all the impacts that we are able to have about nuclear warfare and the extinction of the environment are entirely related to this technology that we produce. But the C argument of this is that there is actually the resolution to be asking us to be able to decrease this form of military presence is only abandoned in a piecemeal solution. But that's the impact. The first impact is The first impact is that if we are not able to destroy civilization, it will continue to externalize violence in a macabre, genocidal parade of horrors. The A point of this is that every day that it exists, millions of non-humans are slaughtered as a sacrifice to the gods of civilization. This is the reason that's why industrial agriculture continually perpetuates a genocide against non-humans, as we separate this dichotomy between the human and the non-human. But the B point of this is that every day civilization continues to pour poisons into the rivers of the wild. We are able to extract the lifeblood of our planet to be able to fuel cars and planes and rip ores from the hearts of the earth to be able to ignore its screams and cries. But the C point of this is that the Anthropocene is ultimately hundreds of years long mass form of extinction, indicating that this is inevitably happening now. But this is a reason as to why civilization is a continuation of this project. This is something that inevitably draws this out into the worst possible form of violence. But the second argument is going to be that there is no value to life. Civilization destroys all value to life because it domesticates us and destroys our instincts to enslave us to the leviathan of historical progress. We are now causing the machine that hates us. But the A point of this is that this ultimately creates resentment towards the other. We indicate that seeking meaning through blaming others is ultimately going to be bad because it allows for civilization to misdirect enmity towards one another, where we lash out against one another in all forms of wars to be able to indicate that our interests are perpetuated and posited above the interests of others. But this is also an embracement of the domination in a pathetic attempt to be able to give life meaning. But that's the adequacy. Vote affirmative to rewild this space as an act of eco-extremism. Vote affirmative to rewild this space as an act of eco-extremism. If you all need a text, we can get you one in flex.
Yeah.
Next is the solvency. The first solvency point is that rewilding is a rejection of civilization on its base. We indicate that we are now rejecting the domesticity of all spaces, but this is a transformation of the spaces of civilization, domination into a force and freedom. We are a rewilding of this space here because we refuse to prop up the Leviathan of civilization. We indicate that civilization only exists so far as we are able to perpetuate or participate in the project of civilization, indicating that refusal to participate in that civilization is the reason as to why we're able to undermine the reason as to why the Leviathan is able to continue now with a point under this is that our action is part of a process of letting nature see back into the we indicate that while nature is able to corrode civilization little by little with entropy in the same way that water is able to diminish stones, indicating that even if we make arguments about civilization being inevitable, we indicate that the retaliation against civilization is the ability for us to be able to rewild the space in these particular projects and in these particular spaces is ultimately going to be beneficial because it's a way of being able to resist these forms of genocide that are happening now. But the second solvency point is going to be that eco-extremism is a tragic sense of life that is embedded in our own epoch. We indicate that we are a product of the contradictions of our times now. We are not able to resolve these questions of the impacts by better philosophies or by better moral codes, but only these questions of the destruction are all that exists, including these forms of hyper-civilization. We must be able to destroy the way in which civilization has oppressed ourselves now as individuals and also the way in which it continues to degrade the environment. But the third solvency point is going to be that we are a form of pessimism that is concerned entirely in the human endeavors. We indicate that whether they are physical, spiritual, or moral, we indicate that we are not concerned with the resolution because we are destroying the world in which the resolution offers in the first place because we are a strategy for being able to survive the collapse after this. This is uniquely important. We indicate that if that collapse is occurring in the status quo and if there are millions of individuals who are dying daily, whether human or non-human, because of this form, the continual project of the Leviathan of civilization, then only our ability to be able to resist this has any capability of being able to provide a strategy for the way in which we're able to survive that collapse because we are able to oppose civilization in the first place. But we are also acting as instruments of the downfall, indicating that in the same way in which the water corrodes the stone, we indicate that we are able to rewild this particular space in this particular area to be able to project the confines and the ways in which that civilization has continued to oppress us, and that is the reason as to why we are able to provide a survival strategy for that collapse of the civilization in and of itself. Anything else you want to solve? Alright. Flex.
Before we start Flex, we want to see the advocacy and the ballot. And then don't prep it.
Do you want me to just read it out loud again slowly, or do you want to?
No, I want to be good.
Yeah.
I'm watching, make sure.
We can just stare.
Stare context.
I feel left out.
She blinked that one. That's an independent voter.
I thought I won.
Well, I won the stare contest. We gotta get at least one ballot for that.
Uh-huh. Wait, you guys have to turn off the color. Yeah, we should probably not tonight.
Definitely.
Well, think about it. If civilization still exists, maybe. Until I float.
Once I get the text, I guess that brings me to my first question.
Alright, cool.
We're gonna read it back to you quick. That's okay.
Alright.
Roll the
Do you have
ballot
any
is
judges
to...
meetings?
That's how I read it back, so y'all can get it all.
Roll of the ballot is to investigate the best method to destroy civilization. Advocacy, vote out to rewild the space as an act of eco-extremism.
Everyone ready?
Yes.
Starting question. Do you guys even feel I'm a good friend of this? Like, are you guys actually destroying civilization, or is it endorsement of a methodology?
It's a rewilding of this space. So
Okay.
it's a methodology. We're not
Okay.
endorsing the art.
So if it's a rewilding of this space, do you guys get access to structural claims that exist outside of this debate round, or do you contextualize this space as being like this room, this debate round, this linear time period of like a half hour?
We contextualize this to be a little bit different than like either one of those dichotomies. So the contextualization of the way in which the affirmative is able to solve is, one, we're not saying that we just immediately are able to imagine ourselves dismantling literally everything,
Well, like,
but
what
this
is
is
this
an act of
space?
eco-extremism, right? So this space is, I would probably say like this room, like this round, what we are doing here is
Okay.
rewilding.
Like this specific room or this specific round?
Yeah, but there's spillover effects after that.
Okay.
People are gonna see it because there's cameras.
No, I definitely understand that. I'm just trying to like get what you mean by like this
For
space.
sure. There's
Yeah.
definitely spillover arc that's built into the solvency,
Mhm.
but yeah.
And correspondence, we need those.
Does society reconstitute itself ever after the events of the advocacy?
No.
Just this space. Or society doesn't reconstitute itself?
No.
So then what's the organizational structure of society and like
It's not a question of society. I think you don't want to conflate the two terms of society and civilization, right? Society is like an organization of communities. Civilization is like a restructuring of how those communities necessarily need to function in
So
like
society
how they
doesn't
relate
really
to
change. For
each
example,
other.
society is not reorganized.
Society, well, necessarily society is reorganized by the evolution of civilization, right? So we're saying they're two separate things.
If
We're saying
society-
that the construction of
If
civilization.
society exists in structures
So,
now,
like-
we eliminate those structures, yes, there would be a different society because it operates differently.
Okay.
Yeah. Society.
Oh, and also
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm so sorry. I was just.
Doing good.
Thank you.
I'm so confused.
Well,
by that.
and good job. Your efforts, and we are proud. Now everybody's
You need
gonna
to
see
stand
that.
though.
Yep.
What is this? Oh, okay.
That's the third page.
Okay.
Cool.
I see. Okay. Here. Okay, order is 2 off.
Okay.
And then the app in the order it was read. Where did I put the app? Put the app. Everyone ready?
Yes.
Sound good? Cool.
There's some cold in here.
Yeah?
Alright, here.
Uh-huh. Interpretation of the PMC must only derive offense from the defense of a topical fiated plan text from the PMC. The PMC must only derive offense from the defense of a topical fiated plan text from the PMC. Violation 1, you don't use fiat in order to discuss the hypothetical implementation of the topical policy. 2, is extra T offense?
What?
Is there extra T offense?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, 2, they derive extra T offense from the representations here is 1, give the subject critical utopianism fails to with the illusion utopia provides a momentary escape from present pain regardless of what the utopia can be. Realizing gives people a chance to rest and heal. B, policy focuses, yeah, we're gonna skip that. B, point is creativity, defending the topic means you don't get to read the same app every round, which is advice to creative strategies to resolve violence. D, particulars, even if in general is bad, it's good to lock it in the room. 2, is decision making that destroys decisions of policy, which are valuable because they help us make better decisions in all aspects of our lives. A, is publicly accessible information. There's a huge level of literature for government policy making, but personal policy making is highly inaccessible to outsiders and highly variable. B, is complexity of public policy decisions are highly complex to consider limiting external factors out of them, which makes us better problem solvers. C, is that it necessarily is always going to turn the app discussions of public policy are key to helping folks who, like, for example, don't have access to Medicare or learning how to understand how the government operates so that they can get that access. Third is the topical version of the affirmative. Do you have one?
What?
The topical version of the affirmative.
Yeah, they could have used this app, for example, take military ships out and then lead to decolonization.
They could have used this app to take military ships out and then therefore lead to decolonization.
Or like the destruction of like the military
Or the
civil
destruction of
society.
the military civil society, force fairness, subordinate, legality, affirmative, destruction, predictability, dignity, affirmative, relevance, is not that anything has potential link to the topic. B is ground your right. Interpretation legitimizes reading truism, blame racism, bad, which makes it getting impossible. C, in an out of station, you will say exclusion of certain groups or tenants that lead to our conception of in-round fears, in-round equal time to make arguments. D, rules, that is not responsive to the authority, except that the authority rules by following speech times and hearings voters. 1, a priori, you need to know the rules of the game before you play the game. 2, procedural fairness comes before the app, subordinate disputes and allegation arguments are seen as true or false based on the flow of the round. Some here the flow is not a good indicator of who's the better debater because they found their arguments based on strategic advantage or craft means they can't win the affirmative against T because and basic question about the app is true in the first place, you reject NG answers because the LOC is skewed, so the NG has an unfair advantage. B is terminal defense against the app. You should presume that all of their two pings are all false because they haven't been properly tested. This come at a higher level than their epistemic skew claim because their epistemic skew claim is literally in the PMC that is itself skewed. D is terminal defense against the affirmative absent testing. They'll reproduce oppression. For example, early African anti-colonial movements lacked argumentative testing, which reproduced misogyny, corruption. Later anti-colonial movements succeeded because they emphasized argumentative testing. D is to make class space unfair to people will do the class the activity, which means they can't read their Afghan. If it's a good app, we should start the debate basically reading it. 3, education, tax, and management, and the reason people support debate. A, the basic question of policy and product Canada. We can't verify the good things, the education, we can't leave the room. B, portable skill turns case, our education is key to critical thinking and skills which should be internally solving the app. 4, evaluate theories, matter of meaning, interpretation because reasonability is our attorneys to judge or mention. Next off, framework, role of the ballot, vote for the team that best challenges the fascism of settler colonialism, vote for the team that best challenges the fascism of settler colonialism. 1, man is the structural material, which means utility tactic, violence, and psychoviolence about the structural power of the settler society of indigeneity, regardless of whether indigeneity materially benefits that structure still violent, and settler society is the power of life and death, to the constant violence of the U.S. and to the understanding of B is the freedom of the question, quality of life, structural things, freedom of the love of slaves, structures of modernity that create an oppression need to be analyzed as prior consideration to the science that psychological epistemology comes first, psychological societies and domestic has resources in creating educational curriculum seem to frame psychological facts of the past, back 1492 rather than as a continuing legacy. C is that or sub point A is that the links and identity claims of the PMC, the structures of knowledge, community, construct claims are according to the validity of your policy. So we the link the atoms and solve the event from negative presumption because the needs to deny the truth of next is the links. 1, civilization destruction necessitates that we destroy all social structures to begin again. Point A, this is the same logic of psychology taking spaces by indigenous folks in order to begin again in America. This recreates cultural genocide and physical genocide. 2, equal extremism. Rewilding posits that it was a space of wildness. So point A is all wild or savage use. It's used as a metaphor for indigenous folks to return to that as an embrace of tropes of indigenous populations. B, this justifies assimilationist logic toward indigenous populations. Wilding is the logic of white women who wear indigenous headdresses for fashion. 3rd, settler subjectivity, and 2 is settler view Indigenous people as a 0 point of modernity.
They don't restructure society.
They say that they don't restructure society, which means the Indigenous body will always be structured as the 0 point of modernity. They don't solve for this impact. One, cultural violence aims psychologically assimilationist and not genocidal in nature, doesn't seek to murder Indigenous people rather to assimilate them to the correct structure of sexual society through cultural genocide. Cultural genocide outweighs genocide, denies individuals a place for their lives to be rendered valuable, seeks to apply life to cause repression. Violence is always justified in relation to some point in order to justify a particular population is valued. We must isolate their similar to the point of absolute abnormality. The Indigenous person is framed as the center of that abnormality of this is worse than any other impact because death and dehumanization both positive semiotics of a human subject that exists to even conceive of the human subject that exists, or to even conceive of a human begs the question of how humanness is created. Cut the three. Okay, cut the three. Okay, go to the alt. Vote next to interrogate the structural process of set call and endorse disorientation, which is the process of set call society recognizing their own alienity. We'll give text later. One epistemological approach to a process of challenging our orientation towards set call is way of recognizing the way the set call includes the existence of politics with the terms of political rationality itself, to recognizing set call as a structure allows for recognition that violence exists beyond the assimilation of Indigenous people in set call society. Set call is merely about Indigenous individuals, and once those individuals are assimilated, the violence is over. 3, disorientation and penalties of the recognizes that set call society is the only one who recognize the original wrongness of the set call enterprise can be grasped and indigeneity must be respected. 5 is for preemption. Disorientation they're always gonna fall, but note the violence of psychology is actually that's fine. Okay, go to the app. First, go to the solvency page, or actually, yeah, go to the alternative. They say that they're going on nature, and little by little, they themselves say that incrementalism is only that is never going to be unable to solve, which means that nature and little by little is never going to solve. Also, their use of this basis it's always going to be able to get to establish colonialism because they're always going to be a form of taking the space back from Indigenous folks. Then go to the. Do you want me to put anything on pessimism?
What? Yeah.
On pessimism, what?
Pessimism necessarily fails. Pessimism is abstraction.
Pessimism necessarily fails because it's always going to be a form of abstraction, which always denies the
material violence.
For material violence, which is always necessarily going to exclude those who.
It lets people say I read Tuck and Yang, which means I am like good now.
It lets people read Tuck and Yang, and therefore to say that I am good now. Also, the truth point here is going to be that it destroys the ability to engage critical utopianism and optimism, which is key to value of life for marginalized populations that just hope to be able to engage in optimism and see the future in order to gain that value of life. It's also key to movement building, which means that nobody's ever going to join onto their movement because if they are just peasants and nobody has a rallying point to rally around. Then go to the impacts. They talk about the Anthropocene lasting for hundreds of years and how we have to destroy the conception of the Anthropocene is literally constantly rejected by Indigenous authors because it assumes that all humans are equally to blame for the destruction of the environment. This is an independent voting issue because they literally conceive of human nature as inherently being the reason for environmental destruction, but ignoring the fact that Indigenous folks have for centuries been protecting the environment despite the efforts of Western civilization, which means they are committed a erasure of those Indigenous folks links them harder into the impacts of the decay, and there's an independent link into those impacts. And they say no value of life, our value of life things are going to come first because we're always the root cause of oppression. Anything else? Okay, Fraser. What else?
Oh, they say that dualism is not a threat to existence. They don't break down dualism.
They say that dualism is not a threat to existence. They don't break down dualism. They're also
actually address the 0 point of modernity.
They don't actually address the 0 point of modernity. Also, they say that they necessarily break down civilization, but they literally create a dualism in themselves between civilization and the wilderness, which is always going to be a relink. Anything else?
Yeah, go to the links.
Go to the links.
It's the root cause of violence.
They say that this is the root cause of violence is.
Cross-apply argumentations from the criticism.
Cross-apply the argumentations from the criticism. Also, they say that state action can never solve. We would say that state action can always destroy itself, which means there's probably a topical version of the affirmative.
Do you want to do text also?
Yeah, the text be dope.
Yeah. Sure.
If you pass it, okay, I can write.
Yeah, because I'm going to say I'm not going to get through it yet. Here's the alt. And here's the little text. yeah, that kind of works.
Would one of y'all mind reading the alt aloud when we pass it?
Yeah.
Then just so I can grab it.
I can read it now if you want, while we're waiting for the other ones. The alternative is to vote neg to interrogate the structural process of settler colonialism and endorse disorientation, which is a process of settler colonial society recognizing its own alienity.
Is it a process?
Of settler colonial society recognizing its own alienity. And then we'll have them read the other two to you.
Cool. So the goal of the ballot, vote for the team that best challenges the fascism of settler colonialism. And the interpretation for the clear sheet was the PMC must only derive offense from the defense of topical theodic plan text read in the PMC. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
You got it. Professor Thomas Davidson, Utopia, correct.
Cool. Can you just read your standards? You have utopian fiat on theory.
Yeah, so,
Creativity. I just need the tag.
yeah, one is fiat good, A is critical utopianism. Fiat is illusory, but that illusion of utopia provides a momentary escape from present pain. Regardless of whether utopia can be realized, it gives people a chance to rest in
Okay.
guilt.
Next is creativity.
Yes,
Next is
creativity.
decision. I just need the tags.
Oh, sorry, my bad. Next is particularism,
Particulars.
and then two is decision making.
Wait, two?
Yeah, so one is fiat good, critical utopianism, creativity, particularism.
Oh, that's all part of one. Okay.
Correct. And then two is decision making. Let me know if you want the tags for that.
Sure.
Health accessible information is A.
Okay.
B is complexity. C is that this is going to turn the app.
Okay.
3 is a topical version of the affirmative.
Okay. Then predictability.
Then 4 is fairness, yeah.
Fairness would be great. Okay.
And then A is limits, ground, in now ground, and rules bend non-responsive.
Truism is this next, and then in-round procedural.
Correct.
Okay. What is this 0-point modernity argument?
The criticism?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That indigenous folks are constructed as the zero point of modernity, to which all other populations are constructed against, right? So modernity being like probably similar to your conception of like what civilization is, insofar as society constructs them.
It's not even like civilization, right? But like that, like the 0 point of modernity is constructed as a social construction, right? But not only that, but it's something that is.
You're repeating yourself. What is 0-point modernity?
Like it's constructed as like a social construction, but like what?
So what do you
Yeah,
like,
so-
natives are what?
The 0 point of modernity is what all other populations are constructed against, right? So we articulate that they are the 0 point. All other populations are compared to them.
Yeah.
I can't identify like one single stable locus for this because
And
that would
is that a
necessitate
link
all
to
the
us?
comparisons.
For what?
It's
what
part
are
of
you
the
saying?
it's part of the impact framing. If you want me to read the links again.
Okay, cool. I think that makes sense with what we're saying. I understand. Okay. Going to be theory on top. You want it?
It's just really broad, I'm not gonna see.
Oh, okay, for sure. The other on, sorry, not the other on top. Theory on top. Then it's going to be the affirmative in the order it was read. That's fine on pages. Then the negative links and alternative. Yeah, I mean, I might touch your framework or whatever. Also,
Here's my W.
is all written. PMC only. That's it.
That's what about this feature. Gives the most quick to that offense.
Judge read.
Oh, wait, that's judges. Fuck. Go ahead. Nothing. He said judges are nice. Yes. Go ahead.
That would be bad.
E points me to the counter-interpretation the Act of 2019 NPTE Elimination 5, down bracket, the affirmative should not have to defend
or the affirmative does not have to derive offense only from the defects of topical theodic plan text read in the PMC. The affirmative does not have to do their term. It is right.
The first argument could be that counter-standard, that's going to be critical education. We say that we have already researched, done research for this because we have topics we've already done some research debate, which means no indication of reason why female activities would be good in this instance because this could be our last debate, which means all the arguments about future norm setting doesn't actually matter because we all end up pretty sure now. The next is going to be that critical education is going to be able to interrogate the civilization is unique because it's a key key instance to be able to understand the critical possibilities of the topic, which means you get more critical education from this. Next, to be better ground. We say that we increase your ground, but you will have links to be able to undermine the ways in which we approach standard other civilizations. Probably means you have velocity ground here. Next, that of domestication. We say the rules are an attempt to domesticate the yourself, which means that we turn any of your standards because this is a question to be able to control individuals and domesticate them, which is ultimately going to be a form of white colonialism, be able to create contracts that Native Americans never actually understand, which means that this is profound contradiction is probably a wrinkling into your own criticism because of the ways in which that Native bodies were ultimately screwed out of their own land because they were given contracts they didn't be able to read. Next, on your standards, you say that if you have to be good, you have to understand the ways in which this round can be key because this is all this round, which means that we have probably had enough education to which means that the critical education can be resolved back because there's far more critical education to be able to increase the creativity because there's more critical education there is potential possible policy options. Next, you say that particularism directly is the access to public information. We say that critical education is also gaining through public information, which means that your policy arguments are not key because fiat can exist outside of the state because we don't define fiat. We see that fiat is just a thought experiment. We say that fiat is a thought experiment, which probably means that after the thought experiment to be able to have personal policy, which your personal policy argument is going to be uniquely so good, and it probably turns back this argument because we have the best form of personal policy because we don't have to use the state. Che Guevara didn't use the state to overthrow Cuba, but wouldn't actually fit under your own interpretation, like my shirt. Cool. Next argument, using this version of the act, you have just said that we were able to hold these ships down, which ultimately create decolonization. One, that doesn't make any sense because we have hundreds of thousands of other ships. The problem is you don't create this decolonization, which means you haven't provided a topical version of the act. Next, we say they were really the only topical version of the act because rewiring is the key internal link to be able to resolve these arguments. You can see on the act, next to predictability, we see that predictability is a form of futurism. That's uniquely bad because it destroys our capabilities to understand these types of things, which also the logic of the ways in which we cause genocide, or the reasons why we call native savages in the first place because they weren't predictable to us, which means that uniquely bad in this case because it pushes people out of the base space. Next argument, you say this is going to be truth claims that you said this has never been proved in, therefore we should not evaluate this. First argument is this is not uniquely true. We say that there are natives that exist outside of civilization right now, the status quo, and you are having a really ethnocentric approach to be able to understand the native body when you do not the fact that they exist outside of civilization right now, which probably means this to say relink to the criticism and the capability you're not able to resolve for. You hold them to these offense and not able to kick it, even though we don't really make so you don't get the offense, you don't get the defensive argument to go kick this. Next argument, you say that this, you said the truth claims not testable, we said resolve this. Next, you say that we create violence in this instance. We say that violence is inevitable in the status quo. The only question to be able to resolve that violence is going to be through violence. Okay, roll that. You say that we use the word Anthropocene, which is the IDI, because it's all the way up the how it eliminates indigenous bodies. We say that indigenous bodies are being eliminated in the status quo, which means that it is not unique violence. This would probably means that you do the same thing, but we say that we're internal link to be able to resolve the ways in which indigenous people are treated in the quo. We say that the hunter-gatherer society is what civilization is based off of, because civilization poses itself as opposite what the hunter society actually was based off, which means the internal link to be able to resolve for settled colonialism in the first place, which means that this is not a characterization of a way that we posit Western ideologies above anything else. It's just a realization that the world is going to die. It's a question of we are returning to the way that natives actually engage with the land, which means that we are embracing that ideology of the natives, which means that we solve. Next argument, you said that we don't actually address the point of zero modernity. We say that your zero modernity point is actually uniquely true. It's the same argument that we say that civilization is positive opposite towards the hunter-gatherer society, which means you don't have any links differential here. The next argument, you say that there's no value to life because we have the root cause. We say that we have the same root cause, which probably means our minds why you have to have the act that's capable to resolve this. You misconstrued our piecemeal reform arguments. We say that piecemeal reform only fails in the one in which the state continually does this because we don't have to take action ourselves, which means that these impacts become inevitable, which means destruction will always happen. We say that we have to turn to a state of nature because neutral aid can be able to resolve for these type of things, which undermines your capability to colonialism. You can extend across the entire voting scenario and our impact. We say that the internal violence is ultimately going to be able to cause this, but the Anthropocene always outweigh the impacts of the after negative team. But next, on to our alt. You say that incrementalism is never able to solve. Again, we say that incrementalism is never solved through the state, which probably means our direct actions here in this space is able to cause some form of rupturing to be able to create ability to let nature back in this room, which means that we just embrace that type of movement rather than continually destroying it, which means that we actually are able to solve. You say that space is taken from indigenous people. We say that's the status quo. That means that in a world in which we will resolve for civilization, which causes native to be pushed out of the status quo. It means that we're able to resolve the structural boundaries that are pushing them out, which means that we're allowing them into this space. Next argument, you can say across the argument about this being key to be able to destroy destruction of morals, but we say that also that this is ultimately this structure comes before any other question of morals. It means that even if you do have a link to our we say that that link is ultimately pushed out with question of morals, which means your epistemological ethical questions are always secondary because you have destroyed the state first. Next is that you said this is abstraction of material violence. We say that you do the same thing, and then we would resolve the material violence. You indications that you just read your colonialism argument, which is probably just as good as saying that you read Tuck and Yang. Next, you say this is utopian fiat. We say that, or utopian criticism. We say that we are keeping able to have this because we do create utopian fiat. You said this keeping movement building because you create rally point. We say that rally points you keep it bad because it allows the state to secure side and spotlight you. We ultimately destroy you, which is the exact way that when the state found out that Che Guevara was in Bulgaria, they would have killed him. I like that guy. Next, argument, go to the links. You say that there it is. You say that we create civilization to destruction of the structure. We just use civilization to destroy social structures. This means to start over, and that means that individuals and natives will also be killed out. First argument is that is not how the uniquely works. We say the native bodies already exist outside of these structures, which means that we are killing them because they exist outside of civilizations. We only destroy civilizations, which means these other bodies would be a template for us to be able to follow in there in route with them. Next argument is you say that this caused some rhetorical violence about whether wildling and savage. We don't use the word savage. We just embrace the form of wildling, which means that we are criticizing that. We are just embracing them as an ideology that we should approach it. Probably resolve your zero maturity argument, but also is that we are to understand that the ways in which civilization is postured also against this. Next, we say that this is a question of settler innocence because we do not reconstruct society. We say that we society reconstruct in a world in which we collapse the borders of civilization, which are the structural reasons in which society has been formatted, which means that we return to a hunter-gatherer society, which is probably the alt perm. First argument on the permutation is going to be do both, do the AF and do both and interrogate the structural process of the settler colonialism to endorse the disorientation in which the process of settler colonial society, just do both. The first argument is going to be that you can read an impact. What footnoting means is probably means your perm preempt is not very good. It's not a reason to be putting us down. Second is that we both have the same internal link, which means that we have the internal link to be able to resolve settler violence because there's no settler violence in one which civilization doesn't exist because civilization is what causes settler violence on the Native Americans or the natives in the first place. Which probably means that there's no link to us. And next argument we say the perm shields links because even if there is some residual link, we say the root cause analysis and the embracement of the wilding ultimately resolves this because we are moving towards this. They might go for some argument about that we are just like white people who get dreads. We say that that's not uniquely to us because this is the only ethical approach we have to be able to resolve because we understand the dichotomy is uniquely false. We have the internal link to the reason why our dichotomy, our dualism argument is going to be uniquely key. You say that this causes the orientation, and we say that the terms able to resolve this, but we don't even need this. It's a question of sequencing. So you could also do the after then do the negative. It doesn't actually matter.
Wait, is it one or one?
1 minute.
Was there a second term you read on the bottom? You just have perm do both, right? You said it's a sequencing claim, is that an independent perm? I just need to know because
No, it's fine. We won't go for it.
So there's just one perm, right?
Just one.
Cool.
Also, you said that indigenous people exist outside of civilization. Does
Yeah.
that mean that there are no indigenous folks inside of civilization right now?
No, that's way misconstruction of what I said. I say that there are natives that exist outside of civilization right now. So your argument about us killing all the natives in the civilization is one, not what we're doing, because we're not killing people, we're ending civilization, which means we're ending the structures that can maintain and control society. Two is that your preface is ethnocentric because you deny the existence of individuals who exist outside those structures
Okay,
now.
but there are natives who exist within civilization right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
The order is going to be
Theory on top.
with the relink argument. It's basically going to be a relink overview with a couple of answers there. Then we're going on to the criticism in order. Then it will be the affirmative. Let's go ahead and say bottom up. So it's going to be the advocacy, the impact, the harms.
These are harms meanings.
Yeah. We'll just link to the topic. So
Yeah,
yeah.
usually say yeah.
Cool. Everyone ready? Awesome. Start time now. You're gonna go ahead
and go negative in this way, or basically because you're going to be going for the criticism, but we're first going to do a quick overview on the interpretation. They read this double find that basically we are creating a contract in which we have to engage with this similar to the logic of settler colonialism. This is fundamentally untrue. We can go ahead and say that the state is bad and violent. We need to understand the contract, and we all enter into debate and interrogate that constantly, which is what this framework channel is always going to be uniquely be. We should be able to interrogate what exactly should be included in this debate space, which will allow for to basically prevent us from ever creating arguments that are always going to be read to frame out other debaters or make this space exclusive, which means that we always are the internal line for arguments such as criticisms we read in the first place, because it allows us to understand the truth claims. You can extend this QC argumentations here, which means that even though we're not going for this, you're still going to evaluate this in the round, and us being able to read this and not being a double line or relink to the criticism in a world which we always say that this is always going to be necessarily to test the validity of the criticism in the first place and understand contracts. Counterword, this is being able to understand, for example, the Dakota Access Pipeline as to how contracts were created by the U.S. federal government in order to engage in this pipeline access in the first place, which means that understanding this is always going to be uniquely key, which means that understanding legality as well as contracts always comes first. Cool. That should resolve all the residual offense there. Understand, predictability, that's fine. Cool. Let's go to criticism. Extend the fact that violence is always going to be structural, not merely material, which means it's always going to access solve the they see the fact that the settler colonial society is always going to have the power of life and death, which means when they actually don't destroy society but just destroy the structure of civilization, they never have the ability to solve initially. Extend the fact that freedom is a question of structure, not just material access. So when they go ahead and say that they increase material access but don't deconstruct the ways that society is constructed, writ large, they're just going to rapidly the 0 point of maturity, which is going to frame the background. But initially, to the fact that settler colonial epistemology comes first. This means that the links are going to indict the truth claims of the PMC, which is first of all going to act as a presumption trigger, which means they're going to go ahead and presume negative, and secondarily means that if the links that the truth comes to the PMC, you're never able to vote in the affirmative because all their epistemology about wilding is always going to be rooted in the logic of settler colonialism, which means you've never actually evaluated their truth claims, which means it's always going to come first. Obviously, to the fact that they talk about the structure of civilization, but colonists speak by indigenous folks. The only more theories that native bodies exist outside of structures. It's going to be back first of all, is that indigenous bodies exist within structures. This is the structure of settler colonialism, and that's forced assimilation of indigenous bodies into white settler society, which means they actually really harder this in the world, which they only conceptualize of indigenous bodies as existing outside of structure, but additionally means that they link it to culture outside, which is the biggest impact theoretic sense. Well, they say that there is no rhetorical violence because they don't say savages. That's not the link we're reading. The idea of wilding is what literally allows white women to go to music festivals and wear indigenous headdresses and say that they are good people because they do this. This always necessarily means that in a world post-affirmative, you're always just going to be embracing the tropes that still create the indigenous bodies being a necessary other, which means that they're always going to replicate these element impacts as well as replicate their impacts on the settler moved innocence. They just concede this because of the fact that they restructure borders. This is literally the settler move to innocence, especially when they're on the affirmative. They are embracing hunter-gatherer society. This is literally the fucking logic for you to say that we should go ahead and just resolve for society doing good things that make us closer to indigenous bodies, which is always going to be necessarily bad. Let's lead this to the impacts. On the impacts. Extend cultural violence being the biggest factor when they never account for the assimilationist fallacy because they never capture the negative, which is first of all a decided determination. Secondarily, means that the affirmative can never follow. They also can see the cultural genocide outweighs when they're conceding 3 links to cultural genocide means you can never go for the affirmative or the curve. Each individual link acts as decide first of all because they indict the truth claims of the PMC, but secondarily because they're all different access points of the PMC. When their fundamental idea of embracing wilding is inherent to the affirmative means you can never go to affirmative, but secondarily they can see that this also creates a binary definition of what is valuable or not valuable, which is the negative. It's the only thing that has the ability to solve because we always posit that there is some sort of non-human, that this is 0 point of modernity. This will always be the indigenous body, which we never have the ability to solve. This is going to be the biggest impact that way, and the impacts they go for. Only alternative. Extend the epistemic rupture. This is going to go ahead and mean that we uniquely solve the affirmative because we create the epistemic rupture that's necessary to deconstruct white settler spaces, which we resolve for all the impacts that they have to resolve for. In terms of violence, secondarily, we recognize that whole colonial structure as a key point of society, which means we deconstruct all forms of other violence that occur against marginalized populations or those that are viewed as the other. They also concede disorientation solves the mechanism which they don't get access to. They never actually disorient. You can look to, first of all, their torpor link, but second of all, their definition of this unique space as being key, which is supposed to be a colonization of this specific space, which means they never actually access disorientation when they always predicate this on land access. On the curve side, they always concede that they're going to put no violence, which is always necessarily bad, but additionally, second is that purpose of the term infinite violence in a world which they always use settler colonial logic to quote-unquote deconstruct settler colonialism. They just find infinite violence, which they always take more and more action to deconstruct society, but ratify it and into the process, which means that they're always going to firstly magnitude cultural genocide the entirety of the world, which is always going to be anything out. Secondarily means that they never get access to their solvency. Third of all, they're always going to mask through the inclusion of the state, any sort of state action, even if the state action deconstructs itself is always going to be bad. So a world which they use society to deconstruct society is always going to be worse because society can just ratify itself. Let's go to the prayer proper. They say that they've asserted the same internal accusing deconstruct settler violence, but first of all, this is settler move to innocence, but second of all, they do not solve for the assimilational violence which occurs, which means they don't solve this, but secondly, they articulate the perm shield links of already Twitter that's not true because each one of the links is the indicted of the methodology of the perm, which means they can't coexist, but secondarily, it means that it does non-unique links, but acts as another reason as to how they're down for assimilation in this round. Third, they say that they create, they deconstruct dichotomies, but they never do in a world which they posit that there is always a wild and a civilized world, which means that they never have the ability to resolve. They say that the perm is always going to resolve the residual links, which you won't grant them that. Next is that to the fact that there was going to be uniquely linked to the destruction of civilization,
civilization as being, sorry. The next dissad is going to be the fact that they always concede. Oh, sorry, I'm just so tired. They always concede the fact that they're always going to put equal blame on all populations for the destruction of civilization. They ignore the fact that indigenous populations have always moved to protect society, which means when you provide this equal blame, it means it's always going to ratify the claim that indigenous bodies are always equally responsible, which ties into the 0 point of modernity, which means the problem doesn't resolve. Anything else you want there? Whew, okay, let's go to the app. It's the fact that they're always going to necessarily critic tools through their understanding. They say that indigenous bodies are always going to be eliminated. The stats call firstly that isn't no reason to vote affirmative if they don't resolve this and always don't forget cultural genocide. Additionally, argumentation is how they focus on the what?
Framework?
On the top of the framework? Yeah. But initially, they say that they always want to move towards hunter-gatherer society because that's what civilization was originally based on. First of all, this is going to provide a relink into the settler innocence, but secondarily, it's always going to be uniquely bad for the world, which just means they replicate their impacts even if they move to a quote-unquote hunter-gatherer society. They never restructure the society that created that, which means that they're always going to uniquely replicate these impacts of, for example, sexism, racism, and colonialism that occurred in the first place to deconstruct this society. Yes.
They relink triggers presumption.
Okay, relink is always going to uniquely trigger presumption because it means that the affirmative doesn't resolve for its own impacts, which means the only way you can vote is negative. Even after an alternative, you should vote for the bad affirmative in order of the negative. In order of the affirmative not solving, even if the negative two answers like to means you should vote negative presumption. Extend. Okay, on the links. Extend the fact that words going to be the unique root cause of violence because they never had the ability to resolve this horrible violence in the first place. They they're the root cause because they have the ability to deconstruct the psychotics. We always see that's fundamentally untrue. What we settle colonialism, settler colonial epistemology always reifies and recontextualizes these structures, even if they get access that they solve for one specific action. Their one specific action doesn't solve for a settler colonial epistemology writ large, which means that any action they take is always going to recreate that which is supposed to be necessarily bad. And it's just through the fact that this state action to destroy itself is never actually going to resolve, or societal action to destroy itself is never actually going to solve because we are always going to just replicate those impacts of cultural genocide because the affirmative never has the ability to solve all the attacks. Don't let them get access to the PMR. They concede the fact that this idea of their attacks is always going to lead to a rejection of the idea that the ways that indigenous folks have always conceived of human nature, which means that their impact is firstly bad because it replicates the impacts of criticism, but secondarily doesn't ever solve for itself because it places equal blame on everyone, which means that it leads to cultural derasure that they attempt to solve for, which means that their civilization that exists post-war is never actually going to create the culpability that they seek to get for the environment, but instead this equal placing of blame is always going to replicate the settler moved to innocence, which means they never have the ability to solve. Okay. They can see that we are the root cause of depression, which means they don't get access to depression claims. On the all. They can see that incrementalism is solved. They say that their incrementalism will solve once they destroy the state, but let's recall very clearly that destroying the state is not an action that is done by incrementalism, but is instead as an action that exists independently of that, which means when they rewild this place, they make no claims to how they resolve society writ large. They go for the spillover argument. The spillover isn't an epistemic rupture, which means they don't actually get access to this big state destruction that's required in order to get them access to their incrementalism, which means they're in a double bind. Either they go for state destruction, which means they're always going to auto-vote negative because they don't do this because they only colonize this space, or you're going to vote on an incremental action, in which case they don't solve because incrementalism is bad and always replicates the cycle of violence that occurs. Actually, they can see that they're an abstraction to violence because of the fact that they can always take themselves away from the material violence that occurs against indigenous bodies.
Please, the LSC is on your sheet. Sure. Everyone ready? Okay. Very good. Cool. This features two parts, layers and PMC. First part is the layer so much for winning the debate. The first layer is going to be the epistemic skew. They can see this argument coming out of the LOC, which is going to put them way behind to tell you that the psychol society is always going to necessarily construct psychol as a fact of the past and also always going to skew the arguments that we are reading in ground. This means that you cannot trust any of their arguments. They literally construct this dichotomy between wildness and civilization. Their concept of what constitutes wilding is always going to be rooted in settler colonialist logics, which means you have to reject them on faith. Also, why our conception of using nature as or their conception of like using nature in order to infiltrate society is always going to be a unique form of co-option and otherization. This is what we articulate in the second link where we tell you this is the logic of like white women using native headdresses because they want to be closer to nature and they want to use nature and like allow it to infiltrate society. This is literally a form of co-option and trying to assimilate indigenous folks into society, which means that they're always going to be behind on the epistemological debate. Their arguments themselves are always going to be skewed. The second layer is that they're always going to be a unique form of assimilation, trying to get society closer to indigenous bodies. This is why they articulate like that some indigenous bodies exist outside of society, and we're just going to try to move closer to that, closer to hunter-gatherer society. There's this whole homogenization rhetoric that's going on with them, where they're trying to code the indigenous other as necessarily like hunter-gatherers that exist outside of society, that we should move toward. This is literally the logic of assimilationism. Means, first of all, this is going to link them inextricably to the K so they can't go for the perm, but second of all, it's going to be an independent reason to vote them down, like a dissent to the advocacy, because it means that they're always going to reify those structures.
It also means that they always reify the settler move to innocence, which tricks you.
This also means that they always reify the settler move to the innocence, which triggers the impacts. That's the third link that we read you. Then the third layer is going to debate, and the debate is going to be that they do not solve the structural condition of settler colonialism necessarily. They only ever try to solve the material conditions, i.e. they try to physically break down society, but that is, or civilization rather, that is never actually going to solve, because settler colonial society will always reconstitute itself in a world where they do not solve for the epistemological skew or for the structure itself. Also, this is how the argument that I read on the Anthropocene, how because their conception of human society as being of environmental destruction inherently being everyone's fault means that they're always going to lead to this destruction of civilization and blame everyone while ignoring the fact that indigenous folks have coexisted with society. The fourth argument is going to be that we solve the better. We necessarily disrupt the structure, not the material conditions, which means we're always going to solve better, because we tell you that there are conceded impacts coming out of the LOC and the MO about how settler colonial structure are the root cause of all of the violences that they mentioned, which means disorientation uniquely solves. The fifth argument is going to be the presumption, the fifth layer of voting process, the presumption triggers. Our links are always going to indict their true claims. This is the second point here is the dualism relay, because they necessarily construct a dualism between wild and civilization. This has two implications. The first is that it's fucking contradictory, because it erases the way that indigenous folks have coexisted as a civilization, but also necessarily coexisted with nature. Also, it means that the app is always going to trigger their own impacts, which means you have to vote on presumption, which flows next, because to negate means to deny the truth of. Then on the preempts, they might try to go for the perm. The first dissent is always going to be the footnoting, because they're always going to footnote the structure of colonial society, which means that they replicate the impacts of the K. The second argument is going to be that the two links that go conceded are always going to be terminal dissents to the affirmative, insofar as we're running that they are literally the logic of assimilationism, as well as fundamentally their concept of the wild is always going to be rooted in colonialist logic. Means that you can never vote for the perm. You have to have a categorical rejection of the set-call structure. What else?
They also concede infinite violence.
They also concede infinite violence, which means they're always going to infinitely replicate the cultural violence. We tell you that cultural violence is always going to outweigh, because it deconstructs value to life completely. That's always going to be a worse impact than
If there's even a risk of the link, you vote for the alt.
If there's even a risk of the link, you vote for the alt alone and don't risk the dissents to the perm.
Cool. It's going to be solving to the affirmative on the top. And then it's going to be our impacts. And then it's going to be the topicality. Oh, here it is. Yeah, got it. So it's going to be the topicality. I'm breaking up that I'm going to make up topicality. And then we're going to go to the alternative and the term debate. Actually,
Just pen pad between sheets again.
yeah, you got it.
I'm sorry, where are you starting on the negative criticism?
I'm sorry?
Where are you starting on the negative criticism?
We're gonna hit an argument on the T first, and then we're gonna go links, alternative term debate.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. That's fine. Okay.
Here we go.
Everybody ready? The only argument, you make it unsolvable. You say that we are not destroying the state because we are not able to solve very large. We indicate that one, that's a solvency deficit that's not obvious against our solvency. But secondarily, you make the argument about how incrementalism is bad. We indicate that nature's incrementalism actually solves because nature's diligent and is able to be itself against this civilization. Once we break that rupture and once we allow nature back into this state of this space of civilization, that's the reason. That's why it's an entire question about the way in which who is using that form of incrementalism to be able to solve that. Means that absent particular response to this solves, we 100% probability of being able to resolve our impacts. I wish we go there now. We are also able to solve the question of the dichotomy between civilization and nature. Indicated we are able to solve the dualism arguments that they make on the paper, but on the impacts one. You can accept across the entirety of the impacts indicated that we are able to solve for one the disruption of individuals and society now. The ways in which we are destroying the dualism between the world and the world of civilization, indicating that these forms of non-human genocide are always going to be able to outweigh any form of any form of death that they are able to argue, indicating that we have an extinction level impact. Secondarily, they say that we reject the notion of human nature in the first place. We are saying that this is the answer to like the impact here and about how we are the concept of the Anthropocene by putting blame on everyone. We put blame on everyone equally who participates in civilization. You have considered that there are indigenous individuals who exist in civilization and indigenous individuals who exist outside of the civilization. We do not put the blame on individuals who do not participate in that form of civilization, but we indicate that the participation in civilization is necessarily bad. Yeah.
Responses to the Anthropocene argument about putting blame on all individuals. This was read in the LOC, so any responses should have been in the MO.
Ryan's articulation was that indigenous bodies have been destroyed in the school, first part. And secondly, we embrace a hunter-gatherer form of society rather than our participation in this writ large civilization. I'm explaining what that participation argument means in context to the supposed Anthropocene being linked to the arcade.
Fail.
Yeah.
Cool. That means that we are not putting blame on everyone individually or everyone equally. We are recognizing that when you do not participate in that form of civilization, then you are not at fault. That resolves almost 100% of their offense from the criticism. But secondarily, go to that you can extend across our entire list as well. Our articulation indicates that we have 100% probability of being able to resolve for the highest magnitude impact of the value. You can vote for the affirmative right here. But now, going to the framework argument, they say that we were able to resolve this, not able to resolve the dualism. We've answered that on the solvency. They also make an argument about how the gatherers and societies are related to the second club. We're going to go there now. They make an argument in the LOR that these internal contradictions are a reason to reject the AF. But they don't resolve the internal contradiction on the topicality, indicating they're relinked to their own criticism because the ways in which they deify these forms of legality are another reason to reject the negative, indicating there's no link differential here. They make an argument indicating that they are not, the indigenous individuals need to be able to participate in a form of legality, but we indicate the only necessity to participate in that legality is because of the civilization that oppresses them in the first place. We indicate that with being able to solve the affirmative, there's no necessity to be able to participate in that form of legality. We indicate that you are the only ones who are able to utilize that illegality to be able to advocate for structuring this space in such a way that we are not able to embrace the form of ethic which your negative criticism is able to provide, indicating that this is an inevitable linked to the negative criticism, and these internal contradictions are reasons to be able to reject, and you should not be able to break that inevitable be rejected.
It's also a net benefit of the perm. There's no civilization to be, there's no contract.
This also means that it's a net benefit to the firm because with the solvency of the affirmative means that there's no contracts that are able to be solved. This in the first place, this is not only a solvency deficit against the negative, but it's also a necessity for the permutation to be able to resolve any of the questions of the contradictions in the first place, but yeah.
Articulation that a net benefit of permutation is an absence of contracts is new, right? This contracts argument was read out of the LOC, which means the permutation in the original block that it presented should have presented argumentations that a contractless world was preferable.
So we read the contract argument in the MG, they responded to it. We should probably get an ability to respond to that, or the affirmatives will never be able to win.
They make a recontextualization of like what this legality is good for.
I know it's a panel, but in this instance, I do not think it's a new art.
Okay.
Same.
Cool, sounds like fun. Another one for this is the reason as to why the double protests failed in the first place, indicating the only abolition of civilization has any capability of being able to resolve the question of settler colonialism out of their links. As an overview to their links, you can't win around by reading a criticism. You have to have links to an impact that you can solve. You don't link to the AF, the permutation solves any residual offense or links of omission, we solve, you vote AF. They said that we put the blame on all individual people. We've already responded to this second because we put the blame on the participants of civilization. But secondarily, they say that we link because the question of being able to embrace these tropes and like we're just like white people wearing headdresses. One, we indicate that you link to, and you drop the argument about how you were also just reading Tonkin Yang and saying, wow, we're super cool now. But secondarily, we indicate that you make this articulation about how this is no net benefit. There's no reason why you should be able to reject the affirmative for this because we are not saying that we are embracing this as a trope and we are not demonizing indigenous culture. We are recognizing that the participation in the structured civilization is necessarily bad. Secondarily, because of the recontextualization of this long I can get answers to the new contextualization of it, indicating that your argument about individuals just wearing headdresses at music festivals is probably participation in a capitalist system in the first place, which commodifies these forms of culture in the first place, and absent civilization, that doesn't even happen. But finally, the question of culture genocide, that means that they don't even have a link to this, but they make an argument about how we were able to embrace the hunter-gatherer civilization, and that's a new link to the settler innocence. One, we indicate that there is no reason that's a link to the app. They don't explain it. They just say, you embrace hunter-gatherer civilizations. That's a really link to settler innocence because now you're just moving away from all the problems that you've caused. We are recognizing that there are better forms for society to exist in. Those societies exist independent of civilization. That exists now. Civilization is what's the problem. Absent civilization, those societies are no longer oppressed. That means we will be expending 100% of the permanent debate. They need to come with disadvantages. One to be footnoting one, still no impact for disadvantage of the infinite violence. They saying that if this causes infinite violence because there should be continual structures against tech hall, then what are you? You also continue to try and fight back against tech hall. We indicate that we are also a categorical rejection of the settler colonialization of civilization on the disadvantage of unmasking. You can see that some societies are good, indicating that if there's a question, being able to resolve the masking and the perpetration solves better, because all the arguments about how we don't talk about native indigenous individuals enough or tech hall enough are links of omission that the alternative is able to solve independently of the affirmative, indicating that this is not used to reject the affirmative. We've already answered the innocence arguments and the civilization arguments. You say that we destroy civilization and blame equally on other individuals. That means that their entire argument about solvency means that we get double solvency to the perm because there's no actual link to the act.
Job done.
Thanks. There you go. Probably did it.